This is Felicia, your Ballin' and Bipolar Success Coach here, going live. I'm going to be keeping an eye out on comments, views from you guys. I want to see if you guys do want to join today on this live. I'm going to be checking the comments. If you guys do want to join me, you feel free to ask me any kind of questions that you have, as long as you're not being rude and ugly. I'm happy to answer questions about my book, about my bipolar diagnosis. I'll be asking kind of what do you guys struggle with? Mood swings, depression, mania. What kind of symptoms do you have? Things like that. If you guys want to chat at all, just let me know. You can comment in the comments section. You can even say, hey, I have a question, anything like that. I'm open to talking to you guys today. My book launched today, and in 5 hours, in 5 hours, meaning from this morning at 8:30 a.m. is when everything kind of launched and went live and when people started buying it. In 5 hours, we've already reached best-selling author in 2 categories on Amazon. I can't believe it. I thank you guys so much for all of your support. I really wrote this book to not only share my story, but help as many people as I can. And I truly, truly, truly hope it helps you guys. The reason that I wrote the book in the first place was because when I was diagnosed bipolar, I had no path to really rebuild my life. I feel like when we're bipolar, we're meant to, it's like we get diagnosed and then we're meant to go play in the Super Bowl when we don't even know what football is, and we're just meant to walk down this bipolar path with no structure. We don't know what's to come. We don't know side effects of medicines. We don't even know what the definition of bipolar is. We don't know how it affects us. We don't know what we feel when mania comes on or what to do to get out of it. We don't know how we feel when depression comes on and what to do to get out of it. We don't know what to do when anxiety comes on and what to do to get out of it. The whole reason I wrote this book is to really give you really kind of a yellow brick road to your success. Your experience is going to be a little bit different than mine was, but it's going to be so similar because at the end of the day, if you have bipolar, there's similarities everywhere. And while your story might be different, trauma might be different, your past life might be a little bit different than mine, but I believe that with the right tools and with the right mindset, support team, we can get through anything. I get emotional when I talk about this, but when you fight for your life, you've got to have the mindset of I'm going to fight back, because I think a lot of the time people are diagnosed with bipolar, and I'm not going to speak to anybody else with any other kind of mental illnesses because that's not my road. I stay in my lane. But I think a lot of the time when people are diagnosed bipolar, there's a huge stigma, and F that mess. There's so many people that struggle with mental health illnesses and otherwise physical ailments, all kinds of disabilities out there. And bipolar still has a stigma to it, and people are embarrassed. People don't want to admit that there's anything wrong. People don't want to get help because they're in denial about it. People don't want to be on meds because they don't want to think that they have to be on meds to be okay. That's something I struggled with a lot. People, you don't want to ask for help because that means something is wrong, and so there's a weakness, or you think that there's a weakness in asking for help, and that's where so many people suffer and sometimes don't make it, and that's the heartbreaking, unfortunate piece that depression can bring on to people. But I think if we catch it in time, and if we know ourselves enough, and if we fight and fight and fight, what it does is we ward off bipolar as much as we can, but knowing that it's not if, it is when a mood swing will come. I know sitting here today that in 5 minutes, a wave of depression can come over me. You know why? Because I'm bipolar. And I know exactly what I'm going to do to get out of that, to get out of that depression, because I don't want it to derail my life. And so many times I think that we ask ourselves the wrong questions. We kind of say, how can I stop spending money when I'm manic? How can I, stop cheating on my husband when I'm manic? It's like, that's not the right question. The right question is, how do we get out of mania to stop all that shit? That's the thing. And so, if you can, I want you to really understand your diagnosis and how it affects you, what that means to you. There is a difference when I feel anxiety versus when I feel mania. There is a difference from depression and just having a low, shitty day. You know, a lot of people throw out the word depression like it's nothing. And I have been clinically depressed. I have been very, 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 very down where it has just crippled my entire being. But I've also been the depressed where I can just feel the cloud that is depression over me. And then I've just had bad days. I have sad days, or I eat too much and I feel like crap, you know? Now, a lot of what I teach and what I talk about is you can't feed this depression. You cannot feed mania. And if we don't live our life in a way that we are premeditated about that, it can seep in so much easier. If you take really an outlook on your life, how do you live your life? Do you wake up? Do you go to sleep at the same time? Do you wake up at the same time? How many hours how many hours of sleep do you get per night? Do you have a routine? Are we eating healthy? Are we exercising? You know, and don't get me wrong, I by no means have a perfect diet. But at the end of the day, I try to very much do the right thing for my body. Okay. So, in that, what I find is that health, physical health, complements your mental health. So, mental health for me is my number one priority. If you have just been diagnosed bipolar, your number one priority is stability and staying level as much as possible. But knowing that if the storm does come, what are we actually going to do to get out of it? What are the solutions? Now, if you are a person that believes that bipolar is a disability and there's no way I can get out of it, my question would be how, if anybody has been clinically depressed and they have come out of it, why do you think you cannot? You know what I mean? That's the question. If I have been manic one day and I come down from it, like, what did I do to get out of it? There has to be a solution for this shit. So, and there is, and that's what the book talks a lot about. Depression is getting out of depression is ultimately distraction. And there was a book I was reading by doctors, and anything I teach, I have either listened to my doctors tell me the same thing. This is not just random things going on in my mind. I have my own psychiatrist, I have my own therapist, and what I have learned over the last 14 years, I condense in order to help you guys. I have done a lot of work, and it took a long time, where I hope it doesn't take you that long. I hope that if you were diagnosed bipolar, you have a path. You have somewhere to look, someone to go talk to. When I was diagnosed, I had a lot of support, but they didn't know necessarily how to help me. Like, my parents had no idea what to say. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to make me feel better. There was nothing they could say because they had never been there before. My friends, they were young. They didn't know what the heck to say. Even my doctor, when I asked him, I said, you know, I went, it was like the worst day. I woke up just crying. I was like, make it stop, make it stop. Like, what is going on? And it was like nothing had happened, but everything had happened. And we made an emergency appointment with my psychiatrist that day. And the fear that I had was this. The fear was my whole personality just a lie because I was just manic my whole life? That was my fear. Because if that were true, that would mean my whole life was a lie. My personality wasn't real. It was just mania. That would mean everybody that it would mean all of my friends, the Felicia that they knew up until that point in my life, was actually not real because I was just manic my whole life. That was the fear that I had. And then when I got diagnosed and when I was medicated, I came so far down and I just felt like, is this it? I was like, this can't be it, you know? And I went to my doctor and I was like, is this it? Like, was my personality just a lie? Is it ever gonna, you know? And he goes, maybe. And I just was shattered. I thought, so the rest of my life, I'm just going to be a shell of the person that I thought I was. I'm just going to be this boring bump on a log that doesn't know how to communicate, that's not confident, that just lost my whole sense of self. It was awful. And I think a lot of the time people have that fear. And if we know that that fear is not true, if we know that your personality is your personality, sometimes mania seeps in, and that's part of it. That's part of the game. That doesn't mean your personality wasn't real. by any means. But we do need to reel it in when we start to go a little bit manic. We need to know how to come down, how to get level again, and things like that. The thing I find, and I'll tell you guys a story. Let me see. Yeah, I'll tell you guys a story. This was recent, meaning it wasn't like right after my initial diagnosis. This story happened about 3 or 4 years ago. Now, after I was diagnosed, it took about 2 years for me to like come back and see any kind of personality again. I mean, maybe within the first year, I would laugh sometimes and things, but it was a long road. It sucked. Let me get some water, you all. Um, and after that diagnosis, I didn't know how to move anymore. I had to quit my serving job again. If you had listened to my live video before, I had quit during the manic episode. I got my job back after I was diagnosed. I went to Cracker Barrel just like I thought I would just go back to life as I know it. Oh, everything's fine. I just have to take meds now. That was not the case. I mean, I didn't know how to be social anymore. I didn't know, like, the Felicia that we all knew and loved was like no more. It was over. And the thing about it is that if I had just been told, here's what the key thing was. If I had been told, listen, you were just diagnosed bipolar 1. Your family and you and your brain went through severe trauma. You had blackouts. You were hospitalized. Like, you were in a psychiatric facility and you had to have tons of medication just to come down. Your brain has a chemical imbalance. Here's what the natural progression is. Here's what's probably going to happen. You're probably going to get depressed because we have to put you on these meds to make you come down. But what we're going to be doing is leveling you out and you will come back. Your personality will come back. But this is what's going to happen. It's going to be freaky for a little bit. It's going to suck for a long time. If I was told, here's the thing, if I was told shit is going to suck for at least a year, but you can build back, like this is not the end of the road, I would have had a light at the end of the tunnel. I had no light at the end of the tunnel. I thought, like, this is it. Like, my life sucks now. This is who I am. I don't know how, I don't have any confidence. I don't have any sense of joy. I have no sense of self-esteem anymore. Where before it was like, I love my life. I was Felicia. Everybody knew me. And it was awful. And so 2 years down the road, I could kind of see a dwindle of light and hope. And I just kind of started to come out of my shell a little bit. And then, so anyway, to go back, what used to happen was I would get really kind of high and low still. Now, what meds do is it's supposed to kind of level this out so that your highs and lows aren't so dramatic. But as you're still bipolar, you can still do this thing. It's just supposed to be more level, okay? So it's up to us to do the rest of the work. It's up to us to like rein it in or build back up if we're depressed. Now, what used to happen was I would have like an awesome day. I would think that I could conquer the world. A little hypomania would come in and then it would just crash. It would be like depression is like, yeah, right, you're an idiot. Like back to square one. It's like one step forward, 10 steps back because of depression. It sucked. And so that's how it was, that those moments would seep in, once a week, once a month. And then it got further and further away as I started kind of building back. When I was able to find a sense of like independence again, there was a sense of confidence. And I'll tell you about, that's going to go on in our next live video. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about today was how I got out of depression, but intentionally got out of it. And this is what was wild. So this was about 5 years ago. My nephew at this time, it might have been 4 years ago. He's 9 now. He was probably 5 maybe then. He was learning how to ride a bike. And so I had not felt depressed in a really, really long time. I just hadn't. I didn't really go from highs and lows a lot. But this one specific day, it was a Sunday. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was out on my back porch at my parents' house. My nephew's out in the yard. I'm up there just sitting on the back deck with my mom. And a sense of just hopelessness came over me. And it was like, because if you've ever been depressed before, this is what it feels like, and I'm sure you can agree. It's almost like you can feel it. Like sitting here today right now, I feel light. I feel airy. I feel like I can just go out to my car and go drive down the road and everything's fine. I can go take a shower and everything's fine. There was a wave that came over me, and it's almost like a gray cloud weighted down, and it's like you can feel it, and a sense of just hopelessness came over me. And I'm sitting there with my sunglasses on. My mom has no idea what's going on, but I just started like crying. And it was like every mistake I had ever made in my life was just shining at me, like shouting at me. And I just felt a sense of like, what am I doing? Oh my life's like this sucks. Like, and it's not even my life sucks. That wasn't even that wasn't even a thought. Depression is just a feeling. It's a feeling of like hopelessness. That's all I can tell you that it was. And it's like I felt a weighted 10 tons of bricks on me, and it's like I couldn't move. And I was sitting there and it just came over me, and I told my mom, I was like, something's going on. And she was like, what's going on? And I just started crying. I was like, I don't know. And that's how it is. Like, that's how it is. It just hits you and you're like, oh shit. And so during that time, I knew what not to do. I knew that it would be very comfortable to just go into my room and go to bed and just lay there and let depression lie on top of me. But I knew that's not what I could do, because I did not want depression to just come over me and take over my freaking life. That's what it will do. And depression will lie to you. It'll say, go to bed. That's what you need to do. You suck. Just go to bed. Like, this is BS. Get out of here. Depression, if you do that, you will feed it, and it will grow and grow and grow and last far too long. And so what I did, I was like, okay, I've got to get out of this state. And so I got up physically. I'm talking about physically. This is like distracting your brain and doing something physical with your body. So this was at about 12 o'clock noon on a Sunday. I got up and I went outside, or we were outside, but we went out to the back of because we go through like a fence to go to the back neighborhood where my nephew can ride his bike. And I was like, okay, we're gonna teach Malachi how to ride a bike today. And I get emotional when I talk about it, because that day turned into, it wasn't about me and how depressed I was. It was Malachi learned how to ride a bike that day. And I'll never forget that. And it was wild because I was out there with him. And anyway, sorry you guys. I was out there with him, and he's like the light of my life, and everything. And it was hard for me to kind of be patient and things like that to like help this kid learn how to ride a bike. But what it did, you guys, on such a bigger level, was it distracted my mindset. If you just sit there and stew and think about depression and think about how awful you feel and think about depression and think about how awful, it's just over and over and over again. And what I did was I literally distracted my brain long enough to where depression it went away. And as I was out there, it didn't just magically disappear, but within 4 hours, I was back. And I knew that day what the solution to depression was. It is absolutely distraction. And it's doing something long enough to where your focus is not on depression. And I remember being out there, and it was almost like I could feel the weight coming off, because right when we went out there for the first hour or two, I was not very not very positive. It was hard for me to like make myself go out there, but I also didn't want Malachi to feel that, but I know he probably could. And I could almost feel, as we were walking outside, it was a beautiful sunny day in Kentucky in the summer. And it was like, as I was walking along those few hours that we were out there, by the end of that, we came in at about 6 o'clock. So from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., I was back. I mean, it was almost like a light was back on. And I came back into the house and I was smiling and I was like, man, that's wild. I mean, 6 hours ago, I was like destruction, hopelessness. I couldn't move. I was on the verge of tears and crying for no reason. And 6 hours later, because I distracted what I was doing and I made it about Malachi, I made it about my nephew and riding his bike, it was not about me anymore. And I was so happy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this kid, he learned how to ride a bike that day. He had never ridden without his training wheels. And we took him off, and our neighbor was helping us and all this stuff. And I came back in and the light was back on. And I was like, that is crazy how fast that can happen. So, and my dad told me that day, he said, you need to write down what you did today because it's going to help you later. And that was 5 years ago. And I remember recording myself. I said, Felicia, what you have to remember is if you've been here before, you've gotten out of it before. Just do it again. If you have been depressed and you've gotten out of it, just do it again. You can get out of it. We can get out of it quicker. We can get out of it within hours. I know we can because I have been there. I know you can. You just have to do work, and it is uncomfortable as hell to actually get up and fight back because it is way easier to go to bed and just let it lie on you. And what I say a lot too is nothing lasts. And that kind of sounds negative when you say that, but if you think about it, there's power in that. Because if the great times don't last forever, we know we can live in those moments for as long as possible and then use those great moments on the bad days. Okay? That's the beauty of it. And then nothing lasts on the bad end either, because if you know, okay, depression is here and that sucks, but if you have a belief that this is not going to last, how fast can we get out of it? And I know you can do it. And so that's what a lot of that book is talking about, you guys. And I'm so happy that we've reached bestseller. I hope you're part of it. I hope you can rewrite your own bipolar success story. I mean, that's what it's there for. You can also have a podcast, Ballin' and Bipolar. Listen for free wherever you listen. The first episode is the Manic episode. The second one is kind of the fall, what happened after. But I have like 30 episodes now, I think. But if you want just more content, more things to help you, all good. Go grab it. The book today is going to be the Kindle version is 99 cents. I kept saying 99 cents, and that was a miscommunication on my part with Amazon. The paperback version cannot be 99 cents only because of printing costs. So the paperback is $8. The Kindle version is 99 cents, though, for a short time. So go ahead and grab your copy. I love you guys. I hope you're doing okay out there. Let's be balling with a side of bipolar.